Hello guys, and welcome to another hangout with the International False Rape Timeline. This isn't the one I was going to make. I'll get around to making Dark Blue Yonder 2 at some point, but this is about dead men. Dead men who can't defend themselves, who can't answer. Its inspiration, if you can call it that, is the recent deluge of allegations against Cesar Chavez, who died in 1993. I'm recording this. Usually I record these videos in the small hours. I'm starting earlier tonight. So if you hear there's a plane going over, or traffic, or the train, that's the reason for it. I don't have a silent room, or whatever you want to call it. Cesar Chavez, as I said, died in 1993. I was aware of him, I'd heard of him, but I didn't really know anything about him, because in the 1990s my interest in American politics was limited to the Washington bubble, more or less, and the presidency of that. Chavez was a Mexican American. He was a union leader and a Democrat, quite articulate, and unlike today's Democrats who've gone insane, and in spite of his Mexican ancestry, he was against open borders. He's opposed to illegal immigrants, a strong union leader. And out of the blue, there's a deluge of allegations against him by women, including a woman who worked with him, Dolores Huerta, whatever you pronounce her name, who claims that he rapes her. He rapes her. He sexually assaulted her once, and another time it was rape. And both times she became pregnant. What are the chances of that? By and large, the media has been hearing these allegations uncritically. You'd have thought that there would have been some sort of paper trail, allegations before, but no, I've done some research in Newsbank. As far as I can tell, this is the first time that these allegations have been made public. I mean, public with a capital P. So what are we to make of it? Well, the guy can't defend himself. There's people removing statues and renaming buildings named after him, all sorts of stuff. Please forgive the yawning. I went to bed very late or very early this morning, and it's really knackered me, and it's really done me. Dolores Huerta, I mean, she's 95 years old now, and not everybody believes her uncritically. I've got a quote here from a comment from the ABC News channel. This is from Meme Faith Friday without the Y 1. I, as a woman, have always been a women's rights advocate, but I don't believe her at all. I can believe the other victims. She reported that both encounters resulted in pregnancies which she hid, and arranged for the children to be raised by other families to ensure they had stable lives. Huerta revealed she kept these events secret for over 60 years, fearing that exposing the truth would damage the farm worker movement. Some have criticised Huerta for harming undocumented workers. However, in 1963, she lobbied for the repeal of the Bracero program, a guest farm worker program initiated to meet increased demand for crops during World War II. I don't believe her either, especially as she claims to have. There's another comment here that says, hooked up with his younger brother and had 4 babies by him. I mean, seriously, no. And these other women who, I mean, just ridiculous, basically. She's also facing allegations herself of, she set up a foundation and there's 11 causes of action. One called disability discrimination. I won't pay too much attention to that. But and some people have pointed out that this is happening at the time when Donald Trump is under pressure. There's 2 people shot dead in Minnesota by ICE agents, and they're linking this to Chavez being in favour of border controls. I mean, another thing here is possible. I saw one report mentioned suing the union. A lot of the time it comes down to money, but not always. I'll give the New York Times some credit. It was the New York Times which was principally behind this so-called expose. Here's a quote from an article. A few of these bodyguards have since died, including Manuel Chavez, who was a cousin of Mr. Chavez. He had bodyguards because there was a plot uncovered to assassinate him in the 70s. Several others declined to comment, including his head of security, Richard Ybarra, who married Mr. Chavez's daughter, Ana Chavez, in late 1971. Others said they were certain that Mr. Chavez had not engaged in any sexual abuse and rejected the women's claims as incompatible with the man they knew. Frank Curiel, a former Marine, drove Mr. Chavez across California, often late into the night, and served as his bodyguard for nearly 2 decades, beginning in the 1970s. He lived at La Paz for nearly 30 years. That's La Paz, California, not La Paz, Bolivia. I'll tell you this, paedophile? Never. Mr. Curiel said, as far as I'm concerned, Cesar was my chief. Yeah, I mean, you can say anything about dead people, especially dead men. That article is credited to Manny Fernandez and Sarah Hurties, claimed to have interviewed more than 60 people and reviewed hundreds of pages of union records, confidential emails, like emails from the 1970s, photographs and other material. Somebody who isn't dead, but he's very much in the news, is Mr. Cosby. And one of the Jane Does who accused him of drugging and raping her in the 2005 trial, which was actually settled before it came to court, she's been awarded a massive sum. Donna Mossinger. I'll put a link to my main Cosby video below. But basically, what happened after the allegations made by Andrea Constable went public, they were leaked, and a gaggle of demented women came forward, urged on by the odious Gloria Allred, and Cosby decided to settle. But there were a number of women who testified, gave depositions or whatever, and she was Jane Doe number 8. She was a waitress. She claims that Cosby invited her to one of his shows, drugged her. Let's see if I can find the this is from 2014. This is using Newsbank, New York Post, November 26, 2014. There's only a brief mention of it there. There's another one, much more detailed. Latest Cosby accuser is a Towles resident, wherever Towles is. Mossinger was one of 12 Jane Does named in a 2005 civil rape case against Cosby. She took to her public Facebook page Tuesday to explain why she kept quiet about the alleged rape for so long, because it only happened recently in her tiny mind. She goes on to say she wrote to Cosby's attorney and asked him to please just have his client not demean the brave women who come forward. Yeah, brave women. Cosby's attorney issued a statement earlier this month to respond to embarrassing sexual assault allegations. These brand new claims about alleged decades-old events are becoming increasingly ridiculous, and it's completely illogical that so many people would have said nothing, done nothing, and made no reports to law enforcement, or asserted civil claims if they thought they had been assaulted over a span of so many years. Yeah. Now, before you mention the grooming gang scandal, there were reports, lots of them, but they were suppressed by corrupt police officers, councils, etc. Just because there were no reports published doesn't mean nothing happened. I'd like to mention here something about these sort of historical allegations. Now, there's one here. This is from Atlanta News First. Man arrested nearly 40 years after a series of rapes in Gwinnett County. Nearly 40 years after several women were raped in Gwinnett County over the summer, a suspect has been arrested. Glenn Plybon is accused of sexually assaulting at least 4 women in June and July 1986. Modern DNA technology and help from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation led to his arrest. See, these were reports. These were women who claimed to have been raped at the time. There's another one. A guy raped 2 women he held up a store and decided to rape them as well. A woman and a teenager. I think the teenager was 19. But there were contemporaneous reports and they had DNA. But with these, there's no contemporaneous reports. There were no contemporaneous reports of Cosby raping women in the 1970s. And I was comparing this with Jimmy Savile. If you listen to the mainstream media in Britain, Jimmy Savile was the most prolific sexual abuser, sexual predator, occasional rapist, maybe not so occasional rapist, these islands have ever seen. That started with a gaggle of demented women, or evil women, making allegations on social media in 2007. Well, they brought it to police in 2007. They'd all been at Duncroft School in the 70s. Savile was questioned about these allegations 2 years before his death, debunked them. After his death, they were resurrected in collaboration with the, I would say, corrupt police officer turned journalist Martin Williams Thomas. And there were appeals for victims and survivors to come forward, and they came forward in their droves. We've seen other things. I mean, Edward Heath, who was Prime Minister of England, not our most distinguished Prime Minister, but he had an unparalleled record of service. He was in Parliament for something like 50 years. He was, or maybe more than that, he was Father of the House when he died. And because he never married, he was believed widely and erroneously to have been homosexual. And when these allegations started, a police constable actually lost his job over it. Maybe other things involved in that. A chief constable, rather. He made a fool of himself. And you know, it's so easy to make these allegations, and many in this case, Heath. And just because there are lots of them doesn't mean there's any substance to them at all. It happens to powerful men, to men in the public eye. It can happen to doctors and teachers and care workers. It's just ridiculous. So check out my Savile video. There are parallels here between Chavez and Savile. Big difference is that, as far as I can tell, nobody seems to have accused Chavez in his lifetime. And, you know, he may have been having sort of affairs here and there, including with Doris, or Huerta, whatever her name is. But this is part of the course. Yeah, I just dug out that case I mentioned of the guy who raped two women. This is from 1989. I'll see if I can get away with playing this or part of it. This is from the WCVB Channel 5 Boston channel. Hopefully I won't get a channel strike or whatever. I've had some problems with YouTube recently.
This is a story about resilience and determination, about advances in science and DNA, and two survivors who never gave up hope. Two survivors leaving court, allowing the world to see their faces, filled with gratitude for the powerful message from a Massachusetts jury.
Would say you was defendant guilty or not guilty?
Guilty, aggravated rape. The jury convicted Stephen Paul Veale on all 7 counts, finding he was the man who walked into the Hit or Miss store in 1989, posing as a customer, pulled out a gun, and raped the women who were working there, just 18 and 29 years old.
Not a day goes by that I am not haunted about what was done to me.
You see, the crime was reported at the time. The crimes, no doubt they happened. This Chavez business, seriously? The Chavez allegations prompted that woman who founded the so-called Me Too movement. So I won't name her, but she's very ugly. And I saw an interview with her. She was going on about patriarchy and rape culture. Absolutely nonsense. But another dead man who's been in the news quite recently, for a long time, is Jeffrey Epstein. Unlike Chavez, Epstein was a sexual predator. Not quite as bad as he's made out to be. In fact, nothing like as bad as he's made out to be. There's no doubt that he procured underage girls for massages, slightly underage for the most part. But the whole industry has grown up out of his initial conviction of self-styled Epstein survivors. Michael Tracy has done a lot to expose the true nature of most of these survivors. Check him out. Other people as well. Jessica Reed Krause, Jay Beecher. But I'd like to play here a short clip of a woman who was most definitely a victim of Epstein when she was 14, and she's had a rough life, let me put it that way, before Epstein and after Epstein. So listen to this.
And my friend and her friend are fucking hanging out by the pool while I was freaking getting abused. And I was so, that sparked more anger in me. I'm like, and they're out there like laughing, having a good time. And then I was like, my friend wasn't up there for that long. I was like, what happened? You know, so I'm so confused at so many aspects of what had just happened to me. And I go out there, I'm like, look at her. And the one girl's like, all right, it's time to go. Like, we did not stay and hang out or whatever, and the cab was already waiting for us outside. I was so confused, didn't understand. We get into the cab, and as soon as we get into the cab, I fucking just lose it. I'm crying. I can't, like, I'm hyperventilating. My friend's asking me what happened. She's like, what's wrong? But the girl that brought us there looked over at me and she goes, shut the fuck up, you just made $200, and threw money at me.
That's from a long interview with a guy who runs a channel called Soft White Underbelly. And what she says here is that she was driven, I think she was driven there by Tony Figueroa, who was of age. She's certainly associated with him. Tony Figueroa was the boyfriend, one of the boyfriends of the odious Virginia Roberts. And the person who told her to shut up, the person she mentioned in that interview, shut up, we just made $200, that was undoubtedly Virginia Roberts. And I think the whole business of this non-prosecution agreement, protecting all the co-conspirators, wasn't to protect powerful men like Donald Trump, yeah, sure, or Bill Clinton, or Richard Branson, or even Jean-Luc Brunel, or Les Wexner. It was to protect the teenage girls and some older women who were Epstein's real co-conspirators, who procured girls for him. Virginia Giuffre, as she then was, seemed to think her age gave her a free pass. No. So the whole thing is, well, lots of men, including dead men, have been slandered, libelled by these self-styled survivors. So some of them, but some of them had a really weird relationship with Epstein. Rena O, for example, she was an adult woman when she met Epstein. One of the things she complained about is that he funded her education. There's Liz Stein, who's a really pathetic woman. So the whole Epstein sex trafficking business is complete rubbish, unless you can see that the trafficking was to Epstein by Ghislaine Maxwell and younger women, many younger women and teenage girls. But the mainstream media won't tell you that, and it's really sad. Right, I will now mention something that was in the news fairly recently. Well, if not in the news, then in the courts. I found this judgment in it's AB v Leicester County Council from 2026, before the Honourable Mr Justice Turner, handed down on 17th of last month, and it concerns allegations in children's homes, allegations of a homosexual nature, in which Lord Jena, Greville Jena MP, QC MP, MP QC, later Lord Jena, he was implicated. I did actually speak to Jena once, very, very briefly, and a libertarian I won't name, after this business came out, he was talking to two or three of us. He was at a conference or something, and Jana offered to share a taxi with him, something like that. I don't know if he did, but he said he reeked of, but he was a married man. He did have kids, and his son Daniel is also KC now. What happened was a bloke named Frank Beck, who'd been in the Marines, worked in children's homes, and he was because he was in the Marines, he was a strict disciplinarian, and he was accused of assaulting kids, including sexually assaulting them. He was actually tried for an ordinary assault and acquitted, but allegations against him, well, there were loads of them. He was convicted and died in prison. But one thing he tried, his trial strategy was he called as a witness a boy, well, by then not a boy, who'd been allegedly abused by Jana, and this witness testified that Beck had protected him from Jana. The enormous number of allegations, and Daniel Jana he's quite emphatic that the whole family believe it's all lies. I don't think it's all lies. I think there is compelling evidence that Jana did sexually abuse one boy, and it mushroomed from there. I'd just like to read you a little bit of this. The allegation, one allegation So this is for compensation, claims for compensation, basically. AB was suing Leicester County Council, and it didn't turn out too well. One time around Christmas, Beck took AB to his home in Braunstone. There he was introduced to a man he later found out was Jena. Jena forced AB to masturbate him, and then had sex with him. He was then made to perform oral sex on Jena, who then went on to perform oral sex with him. Well, I don't believe that. I just don't believe that at all. In May and June 1985, AB spent some time in the Glen Parva Youth Custody Centre before returning to the beaches. The beaches are like the children's home. After he returned, Beck raped him again with substantial force. Jena arrived around 20 minutes later, and AB was made to perform oral sex upon Jena. Who then performed oral sex upon him. Jena then anally raped him. I don't believe any of that. I'm sorry, I don't believe any of it. Daniel Jena says that some of these people had made false allegations, provable false allegations. Normally with allegations of this nature, especially when they're post-dated, they don't specify a chronology, or it's difficult to pin them down. Daniel Jones said one of the allegations against his father, it may not be an AB, but one of his accusers had been so foolish as to give a specific time and location, and Daniel Jones said his father we have his passport, he was in Australia at the time. So as with Epstein, there are truthful allegations, but they mushroom and people jump on the bandwagon. That's what Daniel Jones said in his interview. I'll play a bit of it here, just a tiny bit.
The worst allegation was a 3-day period when he was meant to be in a hotel room with one of the accusers. We have his passport for those 3 days. He was in Australia, on the other side of the world.
This happens all the time, and not just in sex cases. Things get blown up out of proportion. People start inventing stuff. There are genuine errors. I'll just read the end of this judgment. It's quite long. It's 22 pages, not that long for a High Court judgment. 162 paragraphs. The cogency of the evidence relating to the claims by AB and Phillips against Beck are less affected by the passage of time, to the extent that Beck's death does not deprive the defendant of a witness with any residual credibility. Nevertheless, the combination of other features are such as significantly to undermine the cogency of the evidence by the very long delay in bringing proceedings. The consequence of this finding is that it would be inappropriate for me to embark upon the process of adjudicating upon whether or not I would have found the claims to have been proved had there been no limitation issue taken. It follows that I make no factual findings that the claims were abused or not abused by the perpetrators identified in these claims, nor do I make any finding as to whether Jena was an abuser or not. Paragraph 162, accordingly there will be judgment for the defendant. I presume this guy was legal aided, Mr. AB or whatever his real name is. So that was not very satisfactory for him. The same can't be said for this woman who brought this case against Cosby, Donna Motzinger. I mean, ludicrous, absolutely ludicrous. I say again, real victims fight back, even quite young ones, and report fairly promptly. And most of these allegations I don't believe. Anyway, that's Dead Men Can't Defend Themselves. I hope you found something useful there. Don't believe everything you read, don't believe everything you hear, except when it comes from me.